Hello, everyone, and welcome to Group 4's report about photosynthesis. This is the table of content for this video. Number 1. Overview. The process that feeds the biosphere, defining photosynthesis and the definition of autotrophs and heterotrophs with examples. Number 2. Concept 10.1 entitled Photosynthesis converts light energy to the chemical energy of food. The subtopics are chloroplasts, the sites of photosynthesis in plants, tracking atoms through photosynthesis scientific inquiry, the splitting of water, photosynthesis as a redox process, and the two stages of photosynthesis a preview.
Good day everyone, my name is Fame and today I'll be talking about the overview for photosynthesis, the process that feeds the biosphere. So what is photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is the process that converts solar energy into chemical energy. This happens in plants because if we think about solar energy, we know it's from the sun. Plants capture the energy from the sun and use it to convert water and carbon dioxide into carbohydrate which plants use to grow. Directly or indirectly, photosynthesis nourishes almost the entire world. Next up, we have autotrophs and heterotrophs. Autotrophs are organisms which sustain themselves without eating anything derived from other organisms. They are called producers of the biosphere, producing organic molecules from carbon dioxide and other inorganic molecules. Almost all plants are photoautotrophs. Some examples are plants itself, multicellular algae, unicellular protists, and cyanobacteria which are photosynthetic prokaryotes. On the other hand, heterotrophs obtain their organic material from other organisms. They are also known as consumers of the biosphere. Humans and animals are included as heterotrophs because we are dependent on photoautotrophs for food and oxygen. Now let's move on to concept 10.1. But before that, are you guys still familiar with chloroplasts? Chloroplasts are structurally similar to and likely evolved from photosynthetic bacteria. The structural organization of these cells allows chemical reaction of photosynthesis. For deeper understanding about chloroplasts, let me pass it on to Angelica.
Hello and good morning, everyone. So I'm Maria Angelica Bautista, the next reporter for this day. So my report here is chloroplasts, the sites of photosynthesis in plants. So the first bulletin says that leaves are the major location of photosynthesis. So it's common sense that the locations or the major locations of photosynthesis are the leaves of plants. So the next bulletin says here that within a chloroplast, there are this pigment called chlorophyll, which gives the plants its green or iconic green color. Next is the light absorbed by the chlorophyll drives the synthesis of organic molecules like water and carbon dioxide in the chloroplast. In the last bulletin, it says that leaves have this pore that's called stomata, which help carbon dioxide to enter and dioxide to exit. For the next PowerPoint or slide, it says here that chloroplasts are mainly found in the cell called mesosphyle. So mesosphyle is the interior tissue of a leaf. So it's typical that in one mesosphyle cell there has about 30 to 40 chloroplasts in it. So the third bulletin says that the chlorophyll is in the membranes of thylakoids. So thylakoids are the connected sacs inside of chloroplasts, and thylakoids can be stacked in columns which are called grana, and if stacked in many columns, it's called grana. So in the last bulletin, it says here that chloroplasts also contain this dense fluid called stroma, which are outside of thylakoids. So for my next lesson, tracking atoms through photosynthesis scientific inquiry. So photosynthesis can be summarized as the following equations. So 6 carbon dioxide plus 12 H2O plus light energy. Those are the reactants. So these reactants can produce 6 carbon, 12 hydrogen, 6 oxygen plus 6 dioxide plus 6 H2O. So for further explanation of this, let's move on to the next topic. So our next topic is the splitting of water. So chloroplasts split H2O into hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen has these electrons that is needed to make sugar molecules for the plant, and the oxygen will be given to us humans or living things.
In the next slide, it shows here the formula or the equation for the photosynthesis. It also shows here how splitting of water works. So now, let me show you how it is derived. The first thing to do is to distribute 6 to the carbon dioxide. After distribution, the carbon 6 will be given to the first one, and the oxygen will be given to also the first one. And because there are 2 oxygens, the second oxygens will be given to the second. Let us now move on to the second reactant, which is 12H2O. So just like the first one, we will distribute 12 to the H2O. Just like the previous one, we have 2 hydrogens. So the first hydrogen will be given to the first, that will build glycogen, and then the second will be given to the second, which will build water, and then the oxygen will go to the third one, which will be dioxide. So if you are wondering why there is 6H2, that is because 6 times 2 is equals to 12, which is why we distribute the 12, right? And the oxygen is same, 6 times 2 is 12 also. And that is all for my presentation. For better understanding, let's listen to Yumi Manasala.
Hello everyone, my name is Yumi Manasala, and let us talk about photosynthesis as a redox process. Now, a redox reaction is a process in which an electron is moved from one atom to the other, meaning that one of them will lose an electron while the other will gain it, and that one atom will become oxidized and the other will be reduced. Where in terms of photosynthesis, the compound H2O, or what we know as water, will be oxidized, and CO2, which we know as carbon dioxide, will be the one gaining, or as we call it, reduced. Now, there's 2 easy mnemonics that you can remember to make things easier to understand. The first one is Leora, which means it's losing electrons, and it is an oxidation, and it is what we call the reducing agent. On the other hand, the other mnemonic, which is Geroa, meaning it's gaining electrons, it is a reduction, and it's the oxidizing agent. Now let's move on to the 2 stages of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis consists of light reactions, which of course is the photo part, and Calvin cycle, the synthesis part. The light reactions, which happens in thylakoids, or what we know as granum, split H2O, release O2, reduce NADP plus to NADPH, and generate ATP from ADP by photophosphorylation. Now in photophosphorylation, light energy is used to pump protons against a biological membrane, mediated by a flow of electrons through an electron transfer chain. This stores energy in a proton gradient, and as protons flow back through an enzyme called ATP synthase, ATP is generated from ADP and inorganic phosphate. Now the next one, the Calvin cycle, which happens in the stroma, forms sugar from carbon dioxide using ATP and NADPH. The Calvin cycle begins with a carbon fixation, incorporating carbon dioxide into organic molecules, which basically means this is when carbon dioxide gets turned into more useful organic molecules. And with ATP, NADPH, and the fixed carbon, they can now be converted into glucose, which we also know as sugar. Now if you take a look at the process, we can see that H2O enters light reactions through the chloroplast, where NADP plus and ADP is, as well as the light, which is part of the process. As soon as it enters as well, these reaction results into ATP and NADPH, and the O2 is separated from the H2O to the granum, which is where the light reaction is happening. Now, as carbon enters the chloroplast, this is when Calvin cycle occurs, which is the second stage, and that is where ATP and NADPH enters the Calvin cycle, which now results to glucose or sugar. Now, for better understanding, I will pass it to Naomi.
This is the concept map for this video.
Under photosynthesis, we tackle the overview, the process that feeds the biosphere. Under that, the definition of photosynthesis, and autotrophs and heterotrophs. Next is concept 10.1 entitled Photosynthesis converts light energy to the chemical energy of food. We tackled chloroplasts, the sites of photosynthesis in plants, tracking atoms through photosynthesis scientific inquiry, the splitting of water, photosynthesis as a redox process, and lastly, the 2 stages of photosynthesis a preview. I hope you guys learned something from this video.